Good afternoon. I'm really glad to be here. I know it's been a long day, and being the last presenter, I know I'm the person between you and cocktails, or maybe dinner. So I'll be very brief. I will just highlight some of the most relevant rules related to the inheritance law here in Puerto Rico and the trust law. So I know there are a lot of misconceptions related to inheritance law here in Puerto Rico, but I would like to start with the general rule, which is that the inheritance law will apply to the estate of any person domiciled in Puerto Rico at the time of his or her death and to real property located in Puerto Rico. So if you already call Puerto Rico your home, or if you're planning to move to Puerto Rico, or if you already own real property here in Puerto Rico, these rules may apply to you. And the first rule that I would like to share with you is the order of succession that would apply when a person dies in Puerto Rico without a valid will. Generally, when a person dies in Puerto Rico without a will, all of that person's estate will go directly to his children. And the difficulty with that is that in Puerto Rico, if your children are minors or disabled, the local judicial court will have an oversight over those assets until your children attain legal age, which in Puerto Rico it's 21 years, or overcomes the disability. If you die then without descendants, then the second order will be that your assets will be distributed to your ascendants. Next, if you don't have descendants or ascendants, your assets will be distributed to your surviving spouse. And following the order, then it will be distributed to your brothers and sisters, then to your nephews, to other relatives. And at the end of the order, if you don't have any of the above, your assets will then be distributed to the government of Puerto Rico. And maybe you won't like this, but believe me, the government of Puerto Rico will be very happy, and most on these days. So the next set of rules are the forced heirship rules. And they will apply when a person dies in Puerto Rico with a valid will. Even though you can determine how to transfer your assets at your death through a will, you will still have some limitations. Like, for example, if you die with descendants, you will need to leave at least 2/3 of your estate to your descendants. If you don't have descendants, you will need to leave in your will at least half of your estate to your ascendants. And also, your surviving spouse will have a right to use and enjoy a determined portion of the estate during his or her life. And that's what we call in Spanish, el usufructo viudal. How can you avoid this? Well, if you are an Act 22 investor, there are options. To address the inconsistencies among the Puerto Rico inheritance law and the rules and regulations in other jurisdictions, the Puerto Rico government enacted Act 241 in 2014. This is a set of amendments to Act 22 that, among other things, recognize and protect the validity of trusts established in Puerto Rico by an individual resident investor that have been granted a tax exemption decree. Article 7 of the Act 22 now allows an individual resident investor to elect for a trust established in Puerto Rico to be treated as a grantor trust. The benefit of doing this is that the income of the trust will flow directly to the grantor, who is the person that is creating the trust, for income tax purposes. So the person will still maintain the benefits given to him by the tax exemption decree. Also, the individual resident investor will have the benefit to establish in Puerto Rico what is called a revocable trust. And that is a trust that you may elect to terminate at any time. Also, he may be allowed to transfer freely all or part of his or her estate to a trust, irrespectively of any law or regulation in Puerto Rico that may be inconsistent with such transfer, gift, or testamentary disposition. And to summarize, being an Act 22 investor, you're able to create a trust in Puerto Rico that it's a valid trust, to elect for that trust to be treated as a grantor trust and have the benefit of their tax exemption decree, by thus that income flowing directly to you, to elect to create a revocable trust that can be terminated at any time, and the assets transferred to that trust will be distributed to the beneficiaries of the trust as stated in the trust document, and not subject to certain Puerto Rico rules like the inheritance law. Also, this Article 7 of Act 22 recognizes and respects the validity of trust established outside of Puerto Rico by an individual resident investor. So if you already organize a trust under another jurisdiction, like for example, you have right now a New York trust or a Delaware trust, under this rule, the Puerto Rico law will respect that trust and it will be valid in Puerto Rico. What are some of the other considerations when establishing a trust in Puerto Rico? Well, first of all, you should consider who is going to be the trustee. Should it be you? Should you consider someone that you know? Or maybe you should consider an institutional trustee. And in Puerto Rico, there are different companies that provide these trust services to their clients. Also, when transferring your assets to the trust, you have to take into consideration the gift and estate tax implications. And also, as Victor mentioned before, Puerto Rico is a community property jurisdiction. So when acquiring property, for example, real estate property, you should consider if you want to acquire that property directly under your name, or maybe setting up a trust and then the trust acquiring the property for your benefit. Also, you should consider to organize different legal entities as part of your estate plan, like an LLC and or a corporation. These are just some of the consideration and things you should think about related to your estate plan here in Puerto Rico. And my best advice to you tonight will be to contact your tax, legal, or financial advisor and start having this conversation. And also to consider the additional benefits that Act 22 may provide to you and your family. Thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.